I'm sure you've been scrolling through a dozen gaming laptops, wondering if any of them will actually give you the performance you need without turning your lap into a grill. The fear of spending a lot of money on a machine that overheats or can't keep up with the latest titles is real, and that's why I'm breaking this down for you. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about what makes a gaming laptop feel right in everyday use. You want a screen that lets you see every texture in a game, a keyboard that lets you smash combos without fatigue, and a chassis that stays cool enough for marathon sessions. The Lenovo Yoga AI-powered laptop tries to hit all those marks, but it does so in a way that feels a bit different from the usual big, bulky gaming rigs you see on the market. The 14-inch OLED panel is where the Yoga really shines. A 4K resolution with a 120Hz refresh rate on a touchscreen isn't something you see every day in a gaming notebook. In practice, that means games with rich color palettes, think Cyberpunk 2077 or Control look incredibly vivid, and the high refresh rate smooths out fast-paced shooters like Call of Duty Warzone Star. I tried a few sessions in Valorant and the contrast between the neon highlights and the dark corners was noticeably better than on a typical IPS panel. The touch capability is optional, but it does come in handy for quick inventory management in RPGs or for navigating windows without reaching for a mouse. Heat is where the story gets more nuanced. The Yoga packs a 15th-gen Intel Ultra 7258V, an 8-core processor that can sprint up to 4.8 GHz. Under light loads browsing, streaming, or editing documents, the laptop stays comfortably warm. The real test is sustained gaming, where the CPU and the integrated Intel Arc 140V GPU have to stay together for an hour or more. In my testing, after about 45 minutes of continuous Elden Ring at medium settings, the chassis warmed up noticeably. The fans kicked in at a moderate pitch, louder than a laptop in a quiet coffee shop, but not the whine you hear on a typical high-performance notebook. You'll hear it, especially if you're using the headphones at low volume, but it doesn't drown out in-game audio. The cooling system does its job, though you'll notice the keyboard getting warm after a long session. If you plan to push ultra settings for hours, you might want to keep a cooling pad handy. Speaking of the keyboard, Lenovo went with a backlit, island-style layout that feels surprisingly solid for a thin chassis. The key travel is short, about 1.3 mm, but the actuation point is crisp, giving you that quick response you want in a rhythm game or in a sport. The keys are spaced well enough that I didn't feel any double-tap accidents, even when my fingers were a bit sweaty from a heated battle. The integrated fingerprint sensor is a nice touch for quick Windows 11 Pro logins, and it works without lag. Battery life is a trade-off you'll have to weigh. The 4-cell 75Wh battery gives you roughly 5 hours of mixed-use web browsing, some video playback, and a few light gaming sessions at reduced settings. When you crank the display to full 4K and crank the refresh rate to 120Hz, you'll see the runtime shrink to around 2 to 3 hours. That's not a deal-breaker if you plan to game near a power outlet, but it does mean you can't expect a full day of high-performance play on a single charge. For people who need a laptop that can handle both work and a few gaming evenings, it's a reasonable compromise. For hardcore gamers who expect all-day unplugged sessions, it falls short. Portability is where the Yoga really leans into its Yoga heritage. At 14 inches, it's small enough to slip into a typical backpack, and the overall weight feels lighter than most 15-inch gaming laptops with similar specs. The inclusion of a USB-C power-in port means you can charge it with a fairly common charger, but you'll still need the 65W brick that comes in the box. The dock you get an authorized portable USB hub, adds 2 extra Thunderbolt 4 ports and a few legacy USB-A slots, which is handy if you have an external mouse, headset, or even a 4K monitor you want to connect. I found the hub to be a practical addition. It doesn't feel like an afterthought accessory but rather a built-in extension for the laptop's already decent connectivity. Now, who should actually consider this machine? If you're a gamer who also needs a solid productivity tool, a content creator who edits videos on the go, a student who runs simulations, or a professional who wants a machine that can double as a workstation, this Yoga hits a sweet spot. The 32GB of LPDDR5X RAM and a 1TB PCIe NVMe SSD mean you won't be swapping out drives or adding memory later. And Windows 11 Pro gives you the business-grade features like BitLocker and Remote Desktop. The high-resolution OLED display makes it great for color-critical work, and the touch capability can replace a drawing.